Hi everyone, it's Hannah, the PBC Expo Midwife. In today's session, we're going to be focusing on your newborn and the first 6 weeks after your baby's born. This can be a really challenging time, but also one of the most rewarding in your life. And most parents find the first 2 to 3 weeks the hardest, and then things improve from there. In this session, we're going to cover some important topics, including how to bath your baby, how to change their nappy, and some common strategies for safe sleeping and for settling your baby. So let's start with breastfeeding. Although breastfeeding is natural, it can take a little bit for you and your baby to learn how to feed really well. So one of the first keys to successful breastfeeding is ensuring that your baby's really well attached to the breast. So remember that we call it breastfeeding, not nipple feeding. And that's because we want your baby to have a really wide mouthful of breast tissue in their mouth when they're feeding. This is important for a few reasons. The first is that it allows breastfeeding to be more comfortable for you. It allows the nipple to be drawn back into their mouth, which then makes feeding more comfortable and more effective. I'm often asked about the best way to prevent nipple damage, and the key really is watching that attachment, making sure that your baby is getting a really big mouthful of breast tissue and not just sitting on the nipple is the absolute key to preventing nipple damage. It's also really important to know that babies breastfeed a lot in the first few weeks. So babies will feed between 8 and 12 times in every 24-hour period. So that can be quite a surprise for new parents, but that's completely normal. If you're having any challenges with breastfeeding, it's important to seek help from a midwife or lactation consultant early. Don't feel like you just need to push through problems. There's lots of support out there if you need, and it can really help you to successfully breastfeed your baby long term. I recommend to change your baby's nappy at the start of a feed. This is so that you don't get them all nice and cozy in a full tummy and then have to wake them up at the end of the feed to change their nappy. The key when you're choosing a nappy is to make sure that it fits really snug around your baby's tummy and also around their legs to avoid any leaks. You might choose to use a disposable nappy or a cloth nappy, but they're both really great options. When you're ready to change your baby's nappy, make sure that you've got everything ready. So you will need a nappy, you'll need some wipes, and you also want to have your baby somewhere that is safe. On the floor is a great option. However, you can use a change table as well, but just make sure that you don't leave your baby unattended at any point. Once you've got everything ready, it's time to start changing the nappy. So with your baby, place them on their back. We start by removing their nappy. So undo the tabs, and then we want to hold their feet in one hand. And you want to have quite a secure grip so that you can then use your other hand to clean. So use the nappy to wipe from top to bottom to collect any poo that's there. You can then use your wipes to wipe from top to bottom. You may need to use a couple of wipes depending on whether they've done a wee or whether they've done a poo as well. It's really important with baby girls to wipe from the top to the bottom so that we don't move any bacteria into the vagina. Once your baby's clean, then we want to switch for the new nappy, and this is probably the trickiest part. I suggest to get the new nappy ready, to hold your baby's legs and to do a quick switch. Some people choose to use a barrier cream at this point. Now we want to make sure that the nappy is nice and snug around your baby's tummy. We do this by fastening the tabs. If you're using a disposable nappy, we'll also fasten the tabs, and we have the tabs at the back and then move them around to the front to fasten. You can see with this baby that it's nice and snug around their legs. You may like to fan out the sides of the nappy a little as well, and that's particularly good with disposable nappies to catch any leaks. Once we've finished changing your baby's nappy, it's important to put the dirty nappy in the bin and then to make sure that you wash your hands. Now we're going to talk about how to wrap or swaddle your baby. Most babies do prefer to be swaddled because that's similar to the environment that they've been when they're inside the uterus in your tummy during your pregnancy. So the key is to firmly secure your baby's arms, but to allow freedom of movement with their legs for normal hip development. We want to just encourage their hands into a comfortable position near their chest. And then we want to use the wrap to secure their arms so that they're firm, but not too tight. So I like to bring one side over and to actually tuck it in under baby. And at this stage, don't worry too much about what's happening down near their feet. Then we want to bring the other side of the wrap over, and again, just tucking under that side. So now we've got their arms nice and snug. With the legs, we want more freedom of movement. So we want to allow your baby to move their legs up and down and to be able to flex their hips, and this is important for their hip development. With the bottom of the wrap, we just want to gently lift up. So again, allowing that movement in their legs and then tucking around behind your baby. Now you can see that baby is nice and snug around their arms, but there's still lots of room for their legs and their hips to move. Alternatively, some parents do prefer to use a sleeping bag, and this can be a really good option because it's quite easy to be able to get their arms in nice and snug. So now we're going to talk about how to bath your baby. This is something that I commonly get asked about as a midwife, and there's a few key things that you can do that are going to make it an easier experience for you and for your baby. So the first is to make sure we've got everything ready before we start. So what do you actually need when you're going to bath your baby? So you can use a baby bath like this, which can work quite well and is often the easiest option for new parents, or you can also use a big bath or a clean sink as well. So once we've got the bath, we also want to make sure that we have towels to dry our baby off with, and I also find having 2 or 3 face washes really helpful, and I'll go through why that's beneficial in a minute. If you're wanting to use any baby soap or any sort of wash in the water, then have that ready as well. So I'm often asked how often to bath your baby, and that's really up to you. Babies only really need to be bathed a couple of times a week, so maybe 2 or 3 times, but some babies really enjoy it, and some parents will get into a routine where they bath their baby most nights, and that can be a really nice activity, and particularly for partners and for dads, it can be something that they can do to help them to bond with their new baby. So one of the key factors is to make sure that the water is at the right temperature. So we want the water to be between 37 and 38 degrees. If you have a thermometer, you can check the water to make sure it's at that temperature, or you can also check with your wrist just by popping it in the water to make sure that it's not too hot. It's also important to swirl the water around to make sure that there's no hot pockets, but you don't want to keep swirling your hand and leaving it in for the whole time, because then it will start to get desensitized, and when you pop your baby in, it might be too hot for them. So testing with your wrist or with a thermometer is the best way to go. So once you've got your bath to the right temperature, you also want to make sure that you're in a nice warm room without any drafts. It's really important to keep your baby warm. So we want to keep them wrapped or dressed until we're ready to pop them in the water. So the most important thing is to make sure that you do stay with your baby and you don't leave them unattended at any point in this whole process. So it can be quite helpful to have someone there with you the first few times that you bath your baby, so that they can run off and grab things if needed, and you can stay with your baby to keep them safe. Something that you can do is what's called a top and tail. So you don't always need to fully bath your baby each time, and this can be really handy if maybe they haven't got particularly dirty that day and maybe you're in a bit of a rush or you don't want to do the full bath with them. So to do this, we do need a face washer and some warm water, and we can keep your baby wrapped. So the top and tail, as it sounds, involves doing their face and their head, and then moving quickly over their body, cleaning their bottom, and then drying them off. So it's a really quick process. So to start with the top and tail, we keep your baby wrapped, and most people will hold their baby, and then we just want to wring out the face washer. Start with your baby's face. So we use a clean area of the face washer to wipe gently over their eye, and then gaining another clean area to then wipe their other eye. Then we can move to the rest of their face, and just using a clean area of the face washer at each time. So wiping around their mouth. Babies will often have milk around their mouth or under their chin, and that's a really important area to make sure that we're cleaning that part well. We then can also gently wash their head. So just in round circles, gently moving over their head. Babies don't tend to get particularly dirty, so it is quite a quick process to bath them. Now, once we've done their head, most people will lay their baby down and unwrap them. And remember, we want to keep them wrapped to this point so that they're nice and warm. Once baby is unwrapped, we can take their nappy off. And one of my key tips is to leave the nappy on last, because if we don't, we could end up with poo everywhere. So taking the nappy off, changing the nappy as you usually would, and then we can clean their bottom. And then once they're clean, we dry them off. And that's essentially a top and tail. If you'd like to do a full bath with your baby, we're going to go through how to do that now. Once we've got the water ready, we want to pop 2 face washers in the water, and then we want to unwrap your baby, Having a really secure hold on your baby is important because when they're in the bath, it can sometimes be a little bit slippery. So that's one of the key things to get the hang of before you pop your baby in the water. So I like to place baby with their neck resting on my wrist because I find in that position, I have really good control over where their face and their head is in the bath. And it also means that they can be quite relaxed. So then I just place my fingers on baby's upper arm, and that can help me to feel like I've got them secure in the bath. Once we've got your baby's upper body supported, we gently want to hold their feet so that we've got a secure hold. Then we gently lift baby into the bath and then lower into the water. When you lower your baby into the water, there will be some weight behind them, and it's important to allow most of their body to be submerged in the water because this keeps them warm and it also makes the bath more comfortable for them. Something else you can do is to pop the face washer over your baby's body. Because it's soaked in the warm water, it molds around their body and it can help babies to feel more secure in the bath because it's like they're being swaddled. So it's similar to that environment they were in when they were in your tummy. Something else that I find really helpful is to move your baby so that their feet are touching the end of the bath. That can help them to feel more secure as well. So if you pop your baby in the bath and they're crying and they don't really like it, popping the face washer over and moving their feet to the end of the bath often works really well to help them to settle. Now you've noticed that I have taken this hand off of baby, and that's because I've still got that really secure hold on their upper body. So this allows your free hand to be able to wash them. Similar to the top and tail, we want to start with their head and just using your second face washer. This is why it's really handy to have two. So working on their eyes, so just gently from the inside to the outside of their eye, and then using another part of the face washer on their other eye. And again, you could choose to use saline wipes if you prefer. Then we can get another clean area and just clean around your baby's mouth and their chin, remembering to get all of that milk out from there. And then we just work our way down their body. So you can slowly take that top face washer off, wash under their underarms. That's a really important spot because lots of babies have folds of skin under there. Then around their tummy, and then finally moving down to their bottom area. And then we can move that face washer out. Now, if your baby's enjoying the bath, you can keep them in there for longer, as long as the water stays nice and warm. If your baby's not really enjoying it, then once they're clean, we can take them out and dry them off. So with your free hand, just move anything so that you're ready to dry your baby. Make sure that you've got the towel nice and close. And then the same way that we pop baby in the bath, we just make sure that we've got their upper body secure and their legs, and we lift them up and onto the towel. Now, many babies will cry at this point because they're cold. So one tip is to wrap them up loosely as you're drying them. Then we can start with baby's head, around their eyes, their ears. Again, remembering to get in all those skin folds under their neck and under their arms. And you will become quicker at this the more that you do it, and you'll be more confident. So the first time you bath your baby will probably be the hardest, and then it will get easier. Then again, moving down their body, drying the creases around their legs, their thighs, their knees, drying off their bottom. Some people like to roll their baby gently to the side to dry their back off. Babies that have lots of hair, we just dry in round circles. So just going around until your baby's head is dry. And drying their head is really, really important because it's where they can lose a lot of heat. And particularly if their hair is wet, that can make them quite cold. Once your baby's all nice and dry, you're set to dress them. Sleep is a common concern for new parents. So I recommend to sleep your baby in your room for the first 6 months, but on their own sleep surface. So either a cot or a bassinet. It's important when you're placing your baby in the cot or the bassinet to ensure that they're placed right at the bottom so that they can't wriggle under their blankets. We also want to make sure that there's nothing else in the cot or bassinet with them. So no toys, no cot bumpers, hats, or anything like that that could get close to their face and could interfere with their breathing. Once you've placed your baby in the cot, you want to make sure that they're just either swaddled or in a sleeping bag, and that again, there's nothing around them. Remember that your baby has spent 9 months in your tummy, and that's quite a noisy place for them, so they can hear your digestion, your heartbeat, it's warm, there's lots of movement. So for them, sleeping in a cot like this can take a bit for them to adjust. So it's quite common for babies to want to be held a lot, especially in the first few weeks, and that's okay. That's a really normal thing for babies to want to be close to you. You're not spoiling your baby, you're helping them to adjust to life in the outside world. Parents often ask me about the best ways to help their baby to settle. And one of the best ways is to just hold your baby. That's what they need in those first few weeks. Skin to skin with either mum or dad can be really beneficial as well because they're close to you, they can hear your heartbeat, they've got that warmth that we know that they've been used to for so many months. Other things that you might want to try are things like taking your baby for a walk outside or even using a baby wrap or a carrier because that can help them to be close to you, which can help to calm and relax your baby, but it also means that you've then got your hands free. Many new parents are worried that they're holding their baby too much, but in reality, this is what babies often need in the first few weeks. You might have heard of the term baby blues, but what does this actually mean? For a lot of women, they can find in those first few days they've got lots of hormonal challenges. They may be tired from their birth, they're learning how to feed their new baby. So it's quite common around that 3 days after birth point to be feeling a little bit emotional, a bit teary, quite tired, and that's what we refer to as the baby blues. So for some women, these feelings can persist. And once we hit the 2-week point after birth, that's when we start really considering if there is postnatal depression or postnatal anxiety as well. So postnatal depression and postnatal anxiety are relatively common, with 1 in 7 new mums or 1 in 10 new dads experiencing either of these mental health conditions. It's really important to get support early, and there's lots of support out there. Seeking support from your GP can be a really great first step because they can often refer you onto other support services such as psychologists and counsellors. You may also speak to your midwife as well, particularly if they're visiting you at home over the first few weeks after your baby's born. The Perinatal Anxiety and Depression Australia website can also be a great resource, and they also have a free helpline available. Many women wonder where they can get support in those first few weeks. There's lots of support out there, it's just knowing where to access that. And I really recommend that you create a list of support options during your pregnancy so that you can draw on the support that's available in your community after your baby's born. The support services may vary depending on what area you are in. So you may be able to receive support from a midwife, either through your hospital or through a privately practicing midwife. Lactation consultants are trained to provide support specifically with breastfeeding. You may also seek support from your GP or an obstetrician. Or perhaps you may have a child and family health service or a maternal child health nurse that visits you in the first few weeks after your baby's born. And as I mentioned, this can vary widely between areas, so I would encourage you to explore what's available in your area, find a provider that you connect with, and then enlist their support during that postnatal period.